All right, good morning, Rui. Pleasure to see you again. How are you?
Good morning. Pleasure to see you too. I'm good.
Good morning, everyone. We still have people joining in, but we'll just get going here. Welcome, everyone. Rui and I did a webinar on the various applications across the AI applications that Seawire has built that are more external facing. We did that live in London in December, and that was really, really great. And we thought, me, having I know the company quite well and know Ruri very well. We've become friends over the years, and just looking at him as a founder and building this business and hearing some of the things around internally, what the company's been doing to build applications to increase productivity across the board, but in some very, very interesting ways. What we're going to discuss today is, these workflows across sales, marketing, products, and ops, and what the company has built and what they've used and things that they're working on. I think this is beneficial to any founder out there to kind of, if you're not doing this, you should be doing it. And if you are doing it, then this is an interesting, what Rui and the team at Seawire are doing is an interesting comparable against what you're doing. And the whole objective here is the following. So I'm just going to take you guys through a couple very brief introductory thoughts here. So imagine an ad network. And if we look at even all the public companies that are out there in ad tech, whether it's Trade Desk or Criteo or Magnite or Pubmatic or Viant, Outbrain, Taboola, they're all in some way, shape, or form of an ad network. An ad network is a wonderful business model. It works really well. In fact, you could even look at a big chunk of the big holding codes as an ad network, particularly when it comes to the trading desk or whatever that will be called in the future. But if you think about the typical, company, let's say it's 8 years old, and at 8 years old, net revenue per employee. So that's gross revenue times take rate gets you to net revenue, 250,000 per employee. And let's say this company has 100 employees by year eight. And this is what the org chart could look like. This is very generic, but it's probably also not that far from reality. You've got the CEO at the top, and you've got these 5 functional areas. In each of these functional areas, there's people, there's managers, line managers, etc. And there's people in each of these sub-organizations that total up to 100. I think what we're seeing today, particularly in companies like Seawire and others across the board, whether they're newer companies like Seawire or more established companies, the change that's happening within the organization, and this would also be true at the agency level. You have this big compression going on where in each of these 5 functional areas, do I really need that many people? And the answer is no. You build a AI sales org, a AI supply org, ad ops org, tech and development org, and a finance org. And in each one of these, you have maybe 2 or 3 people. And I'm making these numbers up just to be a little bit dramatic here. And those 2 or 3 human beings are running an AI organization. So they're agents that replace all of the folks that were here. So you have 10 to 15 people instead of 100 running AI organizations. And what that looks like in reality is the following. So this is a chart of all of the public ad tech companies, and I go back, build the data set by age, and you can see net revenue. We take net revenue, we get the employee count at a certain age of the company, and we look at these curves and say, well, what's the net revenue per employee by age? And what what is going to certainly happen in the future is an expansion of net revenue per employee, right? And so that's what the hash line looks at the top here. There's like this AI valuation spread, and that's really important because the more productive you are on a net revenue per employee basis, the more valuable you're going to be, whether it's a revenue multiple or an EBITDA multiple. So I'm going to leave it at that, and then I'm going to hand it over to Rui here to, I'll stop my screen share, to kind of like comment on that and then get into some of the things we want to show the audience.
Yes, I think you're right. And that's, it's changing economics completely for companies all around the world. And I think most companies today are kind of adding AI on top of existing tools and workflows that they have. And it does improve productivity in most cases, but it's marginal compared to, like if you would completely build from scratch an entire entire, let's say, AI native operating company. And so I'd see, why are we not just using AI in our products? I mean, we started the company already building around AI for our products, for actually what we're selling and the value proposition we're giving. But we're actually rebuilding now the entire
Which is
company.
and that's what we showed in the last webinar. And that's some, I
Correct.
think, very, very good stuff that the team has built.
Correct. And the idea now is also to rebuild the entire company around AI. And the real impact of AI is when you actually redesign how the work gets done across sales, operations, products, even decision making. Like how do you get all of that around AI? And I think that's what we're going to see more and more in the future. And it's obviously a lot easier when the company is smaller. It's a lot easier when the company doesn't have so much existing structured workflows and so on, and therefore that kind of gives an edge to younger companies like
I
ours.
mean, yeah, look at the announcement that came out. Look at Amazon's news from the CEO in the performance review. It's basically lists 3 to 5 things and lists 3 to 5 things that you did in the last year and prove that they had an impact. Basically, or the message is, or else you're probably gone. So it's about outcomes across the board. It's not just when we're talking about outcomes in the media business. When people talk about outcomes, they're talking about media outcomes or advertising outcomes, but we're also talking about people outcomes and their contribution to the organization. And Amazon's been incredibly clear about it, and I'm really in a brutal way, right? And what they're saying is, well, you know what? If that's if your case is that you're just sort of busy work type of person, well, we can get AI to do the busy work.
Correct.
So,
Correct.
do you want to go ahead and show? Because I think, Rui, one of the things I think there's the email, the internal email, sort of the CRM that you've built,
Yeah.
which is specifically tailored to your world, your customer world, your supplier world, and everything that you deal with to grow the business. And then there was the other thing, which really was the inspiration for the idea of to go talk to the world about this, with what you the demo tool that you guys used and built right before Demexco and used there. So wherever you want to start.
Yeah, I think it kind of started there, right? We over time we've been buying SaaS tools since the beginning of the company and kind of adding them and then figuring out APIs and how to make them work together and how do we get the data and how do we own the data and so on. And that's always been complicated. And then how do we tailor every SaaS tool to actually work for our particular use cases? And you end up having a lot of hacks, and you end up having a lot of things that you kind of tweak to make it work the way you would like. And so what we've kind of started back then at the Mexico was to actually start building lightweight, purpose-built internal systems that we can completely own and then share the context across everything we do, automate the execution and scale with the company. So we're looking at replacing every external tool that we use if it makes sense over time. And I mean, a few things we've done, I can maybe share. Let me see if I can share. I have to send you a request.
Oh, allow. Sorry, there you go.
No worries. So essentially, if I can share that with you, we basically have a screen. There you go. So we started building a tool specifically for events where we could get all the setup done for meetings that the team would have. We could set up how many tables we would have, whether they're available or not at the event, who has duties. So we had a little send station where we had room sends with a game that I will also show that was also developed using AI. And the cost of development for such things went down massively with all the new tools that came up
Yeah,
lately.
that was built that AI tool, that little AI tool around personalities basically and
Correct.
personas was built, and that was really cool as a way at Demexco or any other conference where you're spending a lot of money to have a booth and to have a stand, to get people to kind of come and step into your booth, and then the rest of it kind of unfolds from there.
Yeah, essentially, just to show you a little bit how this looks like, but can you see the game now?
Yep.
All right, so this was on a tablet. And the idea there was to get people to answer a few questions. Your perfect launch campaign, your new campaign goes live. What do you do first? Post immediately on LinkedIn, open the analytics tab and hit refresh, and so on and so on. So we had a few questions like this, and as people answer them, then you end up seeing what the perfect scent is for you. I need some relaxing, apparently, and then you see the recipe as well on how you can do it yourself at home
Right.
with with the different scents. So you can email it to you, and that was essentially doing lead collection. We've done around 200 leads out of that
So it's like, because it looks gimmicky at first, but it's super fun. It's interesting. There's a psychological component to the survey questions, but at the end, the result is 200 leads.
yeah, and then you get a little room scent as well as
And they actually get it, right?
they actually got it. So
That's hilarious.
that was one animation that we had at the booth, and everything we did here could also, was also helping on the pitch, was also helping preparing the meetings. So that was, if I get one of the salespersons there, I can see when a meeting was prepared, and we can see from that meeting, we can essentially start the meeting, and as soon as you start the meeting, all the prep that was done, you essentially have like demo pages, things you want to demo. You can demo the platform, some assets you would like to show to during the meeting. You can take your notes here, set action items. So all of that essentially specifically built for that event, and making sure that we could use all the resources, so the tables that were there for meetings, and also being able to schedule meetings directly um, from these tools. So sending links to clients so that they could actually schedule their meeting directly.
Yeah,
So that
and
was
there was the piece too around, I don't know if you can show it here, but there was the piece around a random person, walks into your Demexco booth and they're from H&M, and you didn't have a meeting set with them, but they heard something about you. They wanted to stop by. Like, hey, I'm, Mary from H&M, and pretty much within a couple seconds you could create a demo specifically around the all of the creative this all of the tools that Seaware has in play for customers. You could create a demo for them immediately.
Yeah, so for the event, we basically had all the assets here ready, and then what we've been building is essentially since the event, we've also been building what we mentioned with the CRM. So I had to disconnect Gmail so that I wouldn't just stream all the emails to the world. But essentially, from these perspective, for us, the idea now is to essentially super easily be able to create a deck, a presentation deck, and that's the type of tools that we're working on to really know, are we presenting to a trading desk? Is it like strategy person at an agency? Is that a CMO, someone that is a bit more tech, and so on and so on? And is it for an agency, for for an advertiser? Contact the organization, so you can add them all here. I can just get one here as a test. And then from here, what's the stage? How much time do you have? What's the technical depth you want to go? Whether programmatic is relevant or not. And from that, we will essentially start creating the deck. You can select the language for the deck. If you want a client logo, some colors that you want to add, you can add it here. And as soon as you do that, it will start putting together from a library of slides, the deck that you need for that particular presentation, and that can be done super quickly as well. And ultimately, the idea for us is that we can, since last time we've been working on the let me quickly open that one. Last time we presented Match Persona, and we've been working on the MatchCreative part, which from a brand, let's say here, let me take Lego, we will essentially start building the DNA of a brand, and that's done automatically out of the website, and then the client can also edit and add his corrections here. It will fetch a lot of resources directly on the website. We can set a campaign DNA so we can get all the assets we want for a campaign. And from there, we will
But
then.
you don't even really need the brand style guide of Lego because you're just getting it. You're basically getting it in a reverse way because that style guide is represented in everything they've already put out there.
Correct. I mean, you basically fetch it from their website, and then they can upload their own if it's stuff that is not yet online. For a particular campaign, it might not be online yet. But the idea is that you then go and select Lego. You select one piece, which was one of the campaigns, campaign DNA. You select the match persona, and here behind these audience, the different personas. And from there, you can then start generating the creatives directly in order to have demos that you can show the client on how their ads would look like. So that's the one we're releasing in Q1. And that's kind of a creative agent that you can also train to then adapt as you go on the
Yeah.
fly the
Yeah.
creatives to the
No,
audience.
and it's super interesting. By the way, if anyone has any questions, just pop them in at any time, and we'll get to those either during our chat or at the end. But it's interesting because, you know, if you went around, if it was, 5 years ago, you'd have to go around and see what kind of SaaS tools are out there to do any of this stuff. And now that's pretty much non-existent. It doesn't really matter because none of it, none of it could be tailored to the way that you want to run the company and that the way things need to be managed and executed. So what do? You just build it yourself, basically. Yannick, Rui's co-founder, product guy, just build it yourself because you can. Whereas
Correct.
5 years ago, that would have not been really an answer.
I think the question is trying to figure out what do we do, and from what we do on a daily basis, which decisions do we take? What information do we need to take those decisions? And how can we make them better? And then every task that we make manually, how can we automate them with the same input, the reasoning that we can have today thanks to LLMs, and then produce outputs that are similar to what we would have done, while still integrating the human in the process to supervise that, make sure that it's better, take the time to improve it even further, and actually have people working on what creates value, rather than on just copy pasting things from a tool
Right.
to another and move from tab to tab. I think that's the approach, and essentially building the CRM. Those are things, and that's dummy data. So don't look at that. I just had to fill everything with dummy data for the demo, but essentially you'll get all the different um, features that you would have in a CRM, but you start building it specifically for you. So for us, building a CRM where we have advertisers, where we have agencies, where we can build agency groups, where we have publishers, where we have investors, and then from there, when I go on an agency, that I can actually get the agency to like link advertisers, where I can build org charts of agencies to understand who is. So that's obviously empty, but where I can have like org charts of a team and see for every individual which accounts they're working on, and keep that up to date. And you can add an element of automation over time by listening what's happening on the different media outlets to figure out when something new pops up with a contact that you own. And all of that are things that we used to license a lot of tools. We used to do a lot of things manually. And the idea is, how do we move from licensing tools and having bits and pieces of data here and there that we can't really use to improve what we do over time, to give it to agents because we don't own it, because it's complicated to maintain APIs everywhere, and because also ultimately those tools are not tailor-made for us, right? So here the idea
Right.
is really making sure that we have all the task lists that we would have here, also with dummy data, but that we have all the task lists ready, that we can have a calendar ready, that we can have that we can set like priority tasks, and all of that would, like, all the priorities in the tasks are actually automated in a way that we build in how we want to prioritize things as a company or as a function, in order to actually, here I got an example from an email. where it will suggest tasks directly from an email. It will categorize it where it finds out, okay, that's probably an email from an agency. It's about a campaign request or a briefing. There is an action needed, and then there is a medium priority on that one. And all of that are things that we can start building on, like how we want to operate as a company, and start automating as much as we can, or suggesting to users what they could be doing, and basically make everyone's job easier in the company to execute better and more.
Yeah. Yeah. And I was thinking about like, you might, as you're growing, the typical thing would be, hey, we're growing and we need to hire into these positions to handle the work. And then with each position, whether it's a sales function, account management, whatever it is, finance, whatever it might be, there's going to be a job description. There's going to be like, here's the prerequisites, here's what we expect out of the person, here's what you should expect in the role. Do you look at that now and just go, wait a minute, we wrote this job description. Do we really need it? Or what are the bits and pieces within that job description that we can automate, basically?
I
Um,
think in the future, right, every time you need to hire a position, you have to ask yourself, whether you need to hire, or whether you're just not efficient enough. And potentially because the business is growing fast and so on, you need to hire. Also because at some point you need people to go on holiday, people might get sick, so you do need that
yeah,
off anyway. And having one person for one function in the long run is probably not a good idea anyway. But ultimately, you have to ask yourself that. And with development costs going down, 80, 90% in the last 3 years, the productivity per employee increases a lot. And all those AI native operations allow smaller teams to move faster, reduce the fixed costs, and operate with a lot more leverage. And all of that is something that you need to start thinking as a founder, or as a any leadership team in any company. Do we need to hire someone? And before you start hiring five of them, maybe figure out how you don't need to hire the next one, and start building the tools so that you don't need to hire the next one. Because obviously, teams operate much, much better as well when you don't have 500 people.
yeah,
So
yeah.
there are lots of upsides there.
Yeah, and I think and there's some trial and error in it too, meaning you know what you want to go try to do and you know that you can go build it. It may not work perfectly the first time, but if you don't start and try it and fall down, it's never going to happen, and you're going to end up defaulting to the hiring piece and be bloated with too many employees. And this is a big problem because, you know, that's probably the biggest hindrance in an ad network model, any type of ad network model. The path to profitability is going to be the two blockers to maximizing profitability in an ad network. Number one are the variable costs of typically AWS, right? Because that moves as revenue moves, and that can be a very significant tax on the business. Um, and I've seen that across the board for the last 10, 15 years, right? Um, and that I'm just on that particular subject. That's, the difference between, say, for example, an index exchange, which is all on premise. There is no AWS.
Yeah.
PubMatic is on premise right now. Those are two different very management teams. Obviously, one's public, one's not public. But that's a big profitability difference than basically having your variable costs continue to ride along with your revenue growth and go to AWS or whichever cloud provider you're using. And then the second area, of course, are fixed costs and people, right? Which has been that's a big area. I mean, what I think Trade Desk and Criteo each have around 3,000 employees, right? And you just have to, it's going to be really interesting to see what that looks like a year from now.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting. I mean, you mentioned one point. I think here the idea is not let's be greedy, or let's try to not have people anymore in
No,
organization.
no, not at all.
I think when we look at, I mean, everyone complains about the ad tech tax. None of the companies in ad tech have crazy profitability. If you look, I mean, there are plenty of companies there that are way more profitable than ad tech companies, right? So that just means it's expensive and inefficient today. So
Well, the ones that do, like a Google, if I think about Google and I think about Meta, both ad networks,
yeah,
and Yahoo to some extent, which is a very profitable company, but private, so we don't know too much about their numbers. But the point is, it's all owned and operated inventory.
yeah, true,
That's a big difference.
true. It is a big difference, and all in all, everything in between, if you get cheaper, you can be more competitive, which translates into, more increasing ROI for the entire ecosystem, advertisers, brands, publishers, everyone in the whole chain can benefit from ad technology in between being essentially more efficient and more scalable. And that is how you have to build a company today, making sure that you can have higher operating margins, faster iteration, and that you more capital efficient to scale organizations much faster, much cheaper, and essentially be more competitive. So I think that that's where the next disruption is coming from, is essentially by having AI not as a feature but as an operating model.
Yeah. Is it easier, you think, to build from what, from building a new company like you've been doing versus a company, I don't know, Viant or Criteo with, many, many employees and having to, retrofit your world for the new world versus building from scratch?
It's a lot easier for a smaller company that is also new, right? I think change is always hard, and we've seen so many consultants and companies going through change management for the past, I mean, since internet started, that accelerated, and companies struggle to change. If they struggle to change because internet was there, e-commerce was there, because things got digital, um, they're going to struggle also. First of all, potentially they're going to struggle to keep their product relevant. But on top of that, they're going to struggle to have an operating model that is built around AI, or they will have to license a lot of tools that might not be as relevant as
Yeah.
they need to. So all in all, I think it will take a long time, and it's a long cycle for established companies, and where small ones can adapt very quickly.
Yeah, no, it's interesting too when you think about it from the perspective of, say, Salesforce or HubSpot. You could have gone out and gotten a HubSpot license and paid whatever you pay for it on number of seats that you would have to go buy. And no,
I mean, we started with that. We started with that and ended up, I mean, we did license a CRM, and the idea is, moving from the CRM to your own tools because it makes all your processes more efficient, where now we can connect it super easily to our own ad technology, to our own AI agents. We have access to that data in the structure we want. We can make the changes we want in any data architecture. We can enrich it the way we want. So there's lots of things that we benefit from building it for our own on our own. And one of them is also verticalize it, make sure that it's perfectly fit and perfect for our industry and our use case. Just having organizations being split properly between advertisers, agencies, understanding how those different stakeholders operate, and build that in the CRM is extremely valuable in the long run as well, to feed that to an LLM.
No, and it's interesting too. Like, I remember there's an older blog post from Ben Horowitz, from Andreessen Horowitz, markets change, customers change, shit changes. And so even though you have something that you've built that's perfect for now, it won't be perfect a month from now. It won't be perfect a year from now, but that's okay because you own it. I think the other interesting thing that I was thinking about as we were talking about, like, the difference between licensing all of these things that you used to do, whether it's a CRM or any other tool, right? And the fact that with a good development team, let me back up a step. When thinking about like the three circles of a Venn diagram of sales, product, market. So typically people go to the two circles, product, market, and talk about product market fit. But then there's sales product. How does the sales team interact with the product team to take what they see and what they learn in the external world, internalize it, and go build something? And what we're talking about today is typically what people talk about is products that are external facing, but we're talking about internal facing products that do ultimately impact the customer experience. But what I was thinking about was, whatever tools that would be in use that don't need to be in use today, because you can build them on your own if you're good enough at it, right? um, is that ends up being that's financially interesting because that actually ends up being an asset on your balance sheet. So that it's like saying, hey, whatever I'm paying for licensing for a CRM across all the seats of all my employees, I could capitalize that. If I could capitalize that from an accounting perspective, then I would move it. I would smooth out my income statement and I would add an asset to my balance sheet because I've capitalized an expense. What you're ultimately doing when you replace the CRM that you used to license with your own stuff, you're effectively doing that, which is great for a balance sheet.
That's true. That's true. Although the cycle and how long, you need then to amortize that, it will get shorter, right? I think back
That,
in
that that's interesting. That's also interesting, like because you normally amortize 3 to 5 years on this stuff, and maybe you're amortizing at like 6 months.
I mean, it's gonna be much shorter, right? I think ultimately, I mean, a while back it was, you could do it on 10 years, then it's 5 years, then it's, 4 3 years. I don't think there's any company that has code that is older than 3 years today. You refactor things, you improve things, you update things, you change things. So with all those tools, the code will probably get even like it will be rewritten even faster, right? So so
Right.
so that is not really something you can capitalize for
That's
over a
that's
long period.
Yeah, that's super interesting. Because just thinking about that, where I would my my amortization life would be as long as I'm going to get benefits from the thing that I've built. But the benefit, the time horizon of getting those benefits could be compressing pretty quickly, right? Um, that's interesting for sure. Yeah, because for example, like when I do a discounted cash flow model on any tech company, I capitalize in 100% of R&D expense, but I do it on a 5-year schedule, and that might need some rethinking.
It might over time. I mean, let's see. Let's see. I don't think people will build more tools, right? I think there will be fewer but smarter tools and systems, and obviously the capitalization you do on such investments, since the productivity of development increased so much, will also be, much lower. So I think it's not it's gonna be shorter to amortize it, but it's gonna be smaller amounts as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting. I don't see, let's see if there's any questions. You can ask if you guys, if you have any questions for Rui, myself, but mainly for Rui, please let us know. Rui, did you also want to show, because I'm not sure, we kind of went into it, but I mean, you showed a little bit about the email piece. We covered that, I think. Is there anything else on that you want to cover?
the what? Sorry, the email piece.
On the on the email, because really what you're doing, you connect into Gmail, but then everything else after that is custom.
Correct. I mean, can't really show most of the stuff because,
Yeah.
but the idea is to also to have a prioritization of email that is done, and that will essentially show you what's the next best thing for you to do, based on whether it's important, urgent, and how you want to prioritize things as a company or as a role, right? So a lot of the emails that I receive will essentially be FYI, and the FYI part is interesting, for me, but I don't want to read all those emails. So the
Right.
interesting part, and maybe I can also show quickly how that looks like in with real data on maybe market insights. Um, all right. So if let me share here my screen quickly. So here, so for example, we have email digests coming up where we can see market insights or business overview. And I can generate that to get the last 8 days or the last 31 days, uh, Not sure why
And the source data for these insights comes from where?
emails.
Okay.
So I subscribe to a lot of newsletters and things, and here the idea
Right.
essentially just figure out what's relevant for us CYer in the market and what's less relevant. And I can just go through that and I have a digest of everything that is market relevant from all the email traffic I get. And I will have the same thing on the business side. Won't click there now, but essentially you end up you end up having also a business overview across all the emails you've got, and you know things that are what's happening in the company. And from my emails, there are plenty of emails I don't necessarily need to read completely, but it will surface as a summary on what's going on and what's important, what's relevant, what I should look at personally, what's relevant for me in this business digest. And then from all the emails that are relevant, when I go into my inbox, I will have a filter that prioritizes the same way we have on the tasks here. When I go on focus, it will show me all the tasks that I need to focus on now because they're important or because they're urgent and because I'm the one that have to do them. So that's the type of things. Here, the idea is also to be able to build up habits that you can set. And it could be habits like sports, but it could be habits as, morning pipeline review. And those habits, you can build them in. And then in your calendar, they will show up. So that's, again, fake data here. But in your calendar, they will be dynamic. That means if a client wants to book a meeting with you at that time, then that one will move. So all your habits, everything you set as a habit, will actually move, will be able to move. You can build buffers around meetings when there's travel, and then you'll basically see all the priorities for all the tasks you have. You can deprioritize them, reprioritize them. You can build up your own habits, and that will then be placed inside your calendar randomly to make sure that you have every morning that you have that review, but to keep that slot open for what could be more important.
Have you guys looked at like across the employee base that are using this every single day across, the entire day? They're using what are the like the user logs say around activity? I'm sure that Yannick is probably looking at maybe some of that, but I mean, as far as like what's the general feedback relative to someone who normally would be coming in, they would log into Gmail, they would have their Google Calendar or and the other basic tools that they use. What's the
I mean,
feedback?
those tasks with the buffers and everything, and the habits and so on. Currently, I'm the only one using them to figure out whether that's helpful or not before we deploy to everyone. But so far, it's actually quite good if you stick to it. Some habits, I might look at them and go like, oh, I let's not go running now.
Right.
But ultimately, it's the kind of things that if you stick to will actually be quite helpful.
Interesting. Cool, man. So I mean, we pretty much, I think, covered what I wanted to cover here because it was the main things around that internal email tool with the calendar, everything you just showed around habits, and then also the demo tool. What else is in the future
What else is in the future? I,
as
I
far
mean,
as these internal
uh,
tools go?
for us in the future is essentially to kind of scale every process, right? When we prospecting clients as well, that they will see what our AI agents would do for them from the get-go. They will see previews of how ads could look like. They will see what type of audiences we would reach and how we adapt the ads for their particular audiences, or also potentially kind of get all that process completely scaled but super customized for them. Also, I mean, one thing that I didn't show, but also get all the campaign optimization and give recommendations on what can be done. And then either we do it, either an AI agent does it, or either we give a suggestion to the client, and then they can decide whether they want to adopt an optimization recommendation or not. A lot of things that we can basically integrate across all the different tools and everything we do in the company. So that's what's next. And we have a lot of ideas in the pipeline as
Yeah.
well. But essentially, I think what's important here is to really focus on the product, but also how you deliver the product. So I think small teams can outperform large organizations, not only on how fast and how iterate, like how agile they can be, but also like they can scale as much as a big one, very quickly in the future. And I think that's going to be a big difference.
Yeah. Yeah. And what on the human side of things, what right now are the top two or three? I mean, you do have, open roles. You're looking for people across different functions as the business grows in as the business grows, it could be a sales function, it could be a developer function. What are the top two or three that you're looking for
I mean,
right now?
developers. Right now, it's in general, it's actually market expansion, right? So it's actually having people that can be closer to the client. It's that, and what we will have as well is making sure that we can double every role, because we do have some roles where we only have one person, which is not ideal in terms of knowledge and in terms of also like holidays and
Yeah.
sickness. So the idea is to do that, and then beyond that, I think that's it. It's going to be sales, some customer success, to be closer to clients, and that's it.
Yeah, yeah, okay. Cool, man. Well, listen, folks, if there's any questions that come up, feel free to email myself or Rui. This will, or DM on LinkedIn is fine as well. I'll get the recording posted for if you want to share it with anyone. And Rui, always a pleasure to see you and hang out and to talk about these things.
Pleasure shared.
Thank you,
Looking.
everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Hello, Rui. That was good.